Hey, what's up guys? JB here. Big surprise in the game this week, we've got a simultaneous release with the JP version, and Helena the Black Rose has joined our game this week. Now believe it or not, this is actually now our 4th version of Helena in the game, so we're now so very close to being able to make that full Helena PvE party. Now this is yet another character who is really going to propel that magic meta that we're currently in forward, which I think is actually a good thing. I really can't remember the last time that we've really been in a full-fledged magic meta in the game. And in fact, we've been in a very heavy physical meta for a very long time now, pretty much since the 3rd anniversary. But how is this unit really going to set herself apart from not only her past versions, but also some of those very strong magic units that we've gotten into the game recently? Well, as we do, let's dive into her kit and find out. Helena the Black Rose is going to be a 100 cost light unit. She's going to be part of that staff Black Mage weapon group. She has a base 3-1 movement and she wears hats and cloth. Let's take a look at the TMR. I'm not a huge fan of this one, to be honest. I think it's a worse version of Dark Fena's TMR. I really don't value that slash resistance effect here very much at all, and I do prefer that higher skill activation reduction that does come along from Dark Fena's. The base stats are also worse on this one. There's no agility, no accuracy, or really anything much of note. Looking at the stats for Helena, pretty solid across the board. She's got above average HP for a magical attacker, especially coming in at just over 4,000 innately. A couple of categories where she does really shine are going to be that huge base magic value of 413, and that is good for top 10 in War of the Visions today. 191 base luck again is going to be very solid. That's a top 15 value. Now, she does come down just a bit when we do factor in her innate values there for these categories, but still very good overall. Now, her innate agility of 67 is actually pretty decent. It is above average. However, no agility passives are available for Helena, so she does actually come back down towards the pack just a bit when those are factored in. Aside from those things, not really all that much of note here. Dex and crit are going to be very poor for this unit. She's not going to be critting anyone out there really whatsoever. And despite that very solid luck value that she does have, her innate accuracy is definitely a little bit lower than I'd like to see as well. She doesn't really have any passives that can help her out in that category either. For mitigation, Helena is going to be coming in with 4 defense and 0 spirits. We have solid resistances here with a 15% against slash, and then 20% against both strike and magic. 2 weaknesses are going to be 5% against missile, and like many units this year, she's going to have a -10 resistance towards pierce damage. As for her ailment resistances, she's going to have 50% against poison. That one has been very relevant of late, of course, with Saul and several other units getting access to that one. And she does have 50% against stop, which is always nice to have. She's not going to get randomly stopped by Summer Glassy or Dark Fena out there on the battlefield. Now, as a unit that you will be running at 97 Faith, ailments is definitely one thing that she does have to worry about, and is one of the best ways to actually get to and shut down this unit. So depending on matchups that you might be seeing out there, things like silence, disable, or slow may be relevant to bring into your build for her. Now, for her mastery ability, she is going to be getting 10% unit resistance, as well as a 20% drop in her activation time for all of her skills, both attack and non-attack based. If you do bring her up to level 140, she's going to pick up another 15% unit resist, gets her up to 25 total, quite significant. She does pick up 10% accuracy here, which I did factor into that total above. It is nice to have, but she will be needing more than that to actually be able to hit evade units. Now, on top of those things, she is getting a further reduction in her attack-based skills of 25%, and then an upgrade here to her Job 25 ability. For passives, her main one here is quite impressive. 24% magic, 40 spirit penetration, and 40 magic res penetration as well. So she's really getting the majority of what she needs offensively here, all in one nice passive. The other one here from her new unique job is also very nice. It's going to get her another 12% unit resistance, getting her up to 37% before you get to gearing. She does get a 40% reduction here to her casting time as well, and that's again going to be attack and non-attack based. So that's going to make it very easy for this unit to instant cast, or at worst one tick the majority of her spells out there in battle. Just keep in mind that this is a timed passive. It will work for just the first 5 turns in battle. Now, she does have access to a couple of other nice passives as well. I think most notable is that clandestine reading from her Grimoire Keeper subjob. It's going to give her access to another 40 spirit penetration. So if you really did need her to tank bust a tank with high spirit, she's going to be able to do that quite well. Now for her counter ability, she does have kind of a counter cure here available from her new main job. It only triggers against physical damage though, so I'm actually not the biggest fan of it, especially when we're seeing so much magic out there currently in the meta. Now she does have the Grimoire Keeper sub-job, so she will have access to hidden resistance. As a general use counter, I do kind of like that one better. It does give her a huge bump in her area resistance, as well as a drop in her hate, which can come in clutch in some situations. Alright guys, let's take a look at Helena's main kit here, and we're going to start off with her buffs. Her self buff here is going to imbue her attacks with a courage removal effect. I like this one quite a bit. There's currently a lot of units out there that are relying on that courage effect for their survival. Alaya, Bradley, and Summer Glassy I think are probably the most notable ones at the moment. Now on top of that, it does give her a new mechanic for War of the Visions. It's something that actually came to Vivi and JP first, just a week or two ago. So we're actually going to be getting access to this just a little bit early. And what it is it's actually kind of a debuff that you'll apply onto your enemies that will remove their ability to actually remove your own re-raise that you have onto yourself. So I think this actually does enable some nice counterplay and should help increase the value of those units that are relying on re-raise currently, which, as of late hasn't been all that significant of an effect to have with all of the re-raise removal in the game. Now her second buff here is quite insane, a lot of effects to go through here. It's going to pass onto your allies an area of effect damage reduction barrier. This one is just like the one that Saul has for himself, just not quite as potent as his. This one will max out at a 25% damage decrease for those large diamond AoEs. Currently no way to dispel this type of barrier, but it does only last for 4 turns here. Now, on top of that, we do have several effects that will be applied to just Helena. First and foremost is going to be that re-raise. So, of course, that first buff that we just looked at is going to be very important for protecting this status. She's also going to be getting 20% dark resist, 20% area resist, and then a 30% flat magic damage reduction. So another one of those stacked buffs that we've been seeing here lately. You definitely want to make sure that she's getting both of these online in battle. And I think because of that, it's going to actually limit her usage of TMRs, especially in smaller maps. Moving on now into her skills. Her low AP attack is going to be a range 3, range height 1. It's going to be coming in with that low 141% mod. Just a single effect here, and it's going to be a 25% chance to stop your opponent. I don't see this one as hugely impactful for autoplay. The AI, tends to bring these out as a finisher skill, so probably going to be a little bit more effective for manual play. Her second attack here is going to get up to a range of 5 on the cross AoE. Very flexible tile height targeting range here as well, up to 3 on the AoE. We've got a base modifier of 140% with a conditional modifier increase dependent on how many units are in your targeting radius. We have seen several of these type of skills as of late, so when you actually have 3 or more targets there in that cross AoE, it's going to cap out at a maximum of a 215% modifier. It does have an additional effect here based on how many units you actually KO with the skill. It's actually going to give you a self-cure or 120 times heal for 1 KO, and then a Curata equivalent 240x heal if you do kill 2 or more. Now skill number 3 here is going to be called Rose Blast. Incredible range on this one, getting up to a range of 6 there on the diamond AoE. The range height here, again, very flexible, can be a difference of 3 there on the targeting tile, as well as an additional 1 on the area of effect. Now prior to the large damage on this skill, this one's going to be introducing another new mechanic, something that first debuted with the new Astrius unit over in JP recently. This one's going to be a scaling area resist imperil. So whatever value your units have for area resistance when this hits you, it's going to be deducted by 60%. So that is going to include buffs or debuffs or whatever is actually affecting you at that moment. So for example, if Rain has 100% area resistance and gets hit with this, he's going to go down to 40%. Now, like I said, this does include buffs that may be active on you at that time. So let's say that Rain got buffed and he's now at 120% area resistance. Well, automatically the debuff would be adjusted and he would be sitting at an effective 48% area resistance. So in that regard, it works very much like a penetration value would in the game for defense or a damage type. Very, very strong ability. It's a way to counter some of those units out there that have been able to really stack up incredible amounts of area resistance, like a Rain, like a Ferris, and several others. The crazy part is the skill is not over. There's still more here. Post damage, this actually does have a conditional chance to put your targets to sleep as well. So if you're hitting just one target with this one, it's got a very high 65% base chance to put them to sleep, which is essentially a limit burst potency there. If you hit 2 targets with this one, it's going to get reduced to a 45% sleep chance, and then any more than that, you're going to go down to that standard 25% base chance to sleep them. So this is an incredibly powerful skill here all around the board. Sleep resist, I think, is going to be very much in demand going forward. Now the 4th skill here, this one's going to be a single target, range of 4. It's got a range height of 2. It's coming in with that large 200% modifier. Prior to the damage, this one is going to seal off any reaction abilities of your target, and this one is going to be a 3-hit chaining attack. So with this skill, she becomes a very valuable member of your guild raid team as well, especially with that increased magic damage cap that they have been putting in recent guild raids. Now last but not least, we do have Helena's Limit Burst. This one again is going to be that large diamond AoE with that enhanced 6 total range. Prior to the damage, we do have a magic resist and peril of 38%. Not a lot of magic resist out there in the meta, so this one is going to drop many units into the negatives. This does also really enable her to work well with other mages in a rainbow team as well. Now this is our first Limit Burst that does also include a sequential ability. And this one is going to have an AoE Cura ability after you do your damage, which will heal any allies in this diamond radius around Helena. Now on top of that, it does also put a reflect status onto herself, so any mage trying to retaliate and hit her back with a spell, it's going to bounce right back at them. So absolutely insane stuff here, guys. Now in terms of the sub job choice, I think that she's actually got a couple of good options. I really like all 3 of them. Her main job sub has a very nice healing skill, as well as a select 2 attack that's a 2-hit chain on top of it. She does also have access to Grimoire Keeper. It's going to give her some tools to deal with more physical-based units, gives her protect as well as a very nice physical barrier. Now last but not least, she does have White Mage. That's going to give her some supportive skills, some cures, some protect and shell, but most importantly, it does give her access to the Holy Spell, which is going to be the only guaranteed hit in her entire kit. So because of the accuracy concerns that I did note there in the stats portion, I think personally I would use this White Mage sub most often, but the other 2 I think are quite nice as well, and I can really see uses for all 3 of them. Now, at least as of now, there is not a new vision card for Helena, but I do assume that we will probably get one maybe as soon as next week. Let's take a look though at the weapon group that she is a part of, and that is going to be that Staff Black Mage group. There's going to be a decent amount of cards here that have been released so far. Up through JP's timeline, they are now up to 10. So that does leave us waiting on a couple here. I think most notable is going to be that Hollow Vision card that will be coming alongside Vivi. Now I think one of the key cards here for the group overall is going to be that Great Demon card, not only because it's giving you that great agility effect, but because it is linking into the Mace group, which will give you access to Raft for a frontline tank for this group. The other nice thing is that card has almost perfect overlap with that Vivi card, which will cover your area resistance there for that team. Now, if you don't have RAF or that card, there are a couple of other options here that you could look at for bringing in a tank. We do have the Halloween Vision card, which will link into the Spear group for access to Dialdo. Or you could look at the Sword Red Mage group with that Dwayne Vision card if you do have access to Summer Glassy. So definitely some nice options there, in terms of a frontline tank for the group. In terms of other, supporting cast here within Black Mage, there are a couple of nice ones here. Dark Fina, Sakura, Skahal, all pretty decent. But I think this group really is waiting for Vivi to come in and really be that potent 1-2 punch alongside Helena. I think that they are sort of meant to work together, and they do pair together very, very well, in my opinion. Another thought for this team, being that they don't have a frontline tank purely within the group, can you actually go tankless with this group? I think with these new units like Helena, like Vivi, the answer would actually be yes. You can put Ayaka or another support behind them to sort of help keep them topped off, maybe get a full life if one of them does fall in battle. And I think depending on who you're fighting, I think that actually could work very well and would give you more access to the cards within this group to set up the team. Now that said, all it really takes is one great card to really change the complexion of the group, so certainly something that can be revisited if and when a new Helena Vision card does come out. Alright guys, we're on to the mock builds here next. And we don't have Vivi, we don't have Vivi's vision card, so I'm actually just going to go ahead and build a mono light team here today. Now I've already pulled and built up Helena. I've been playing around with her, she's quite good. And if you have access to Addison Rae that we got, several months ago, it's an incredibly good combo that we have access to already here in Global. And in regards to those tankless compositions, it's something that I've been playing around with. You can put as a third Jaden, you could put Stern or Bartz. I think any of those can work very well with that core duo of Addison and Helena. I do think though that those triple DPS combinations do take a little bit more work, a little bit more tuning to really get them right so that they are effective in battle. So today I'm just going to be going with more of a standard tank and spank kind of setup, and we're going to have Warrior of Light here fronting the team and sort of taking the front line for us. Now for equipment here in the build, I'm going to be using that new staff, the Rose Thorn. It's going to give her access to some additional area resistance, which is very important for Helena. She doesn't have any innately, so I think that's, with all of the area damage out there, she's going to want to get as much of that as she can. Other good options, though, are going to be the Wizard Rod or the Prunus Lamina. For a TMR, I think in most cases, you're just going to be going for a stat stick there. Black Rose Helenas or Dark Finas, I think, are a couple of good choices. For an Esper, I'm going to be going with Bahamut here in the builds. I'm going to build that with both strike and magic resistance to sort of double down on the natural strengths of this unit. For our vision cards, we're going to have our agility, unit resistance, and area resistance covered by these two Bahamut cards. For the third slot, it's going to be more of a free choice. I'm going to be using Valifor here in the build for that increased magic res penetration. For the Trust Stones here, I'm going to have HP and agility sets. I do think though that a defense or spirit set there on the left side can be very effective as well, sort of get her some more healing power to really have those cures pop off. On that same left side, I'm really going to be focusing against some status ailments that are out there in the meta. I do think that when playing Helena, those are probably one of her biggest concerns. For the stats here in the builds, looking very good at just under 10k HP, almost 1700 magic, and a very nice agility value at 110. The unit resistance here is certainly one of the highlights. 72% is going to be off the chains. If you were to bring in a buff from a TMR, for example, she could be very close, if not nulling that type of damage. The area resistance here, though, you can see it's not holding up quite as well. Even though we have heavily focused on it here in the build, bringing in two different vision cards, we are only able just to reach 29%. So in fact, in many builds that you might see out there, she's going to be much lower than this and be very susceptible to large area of effect damage. Now where the build really falls off though is going to be that accuracy and especially the crit rate as well. She's really only meeting a minimum accuracy threshold here for me of 290%. So keeping that in mind, she certainly will be exposed against evasive units, and I think because of that you will want to use that White Mage sub-job. So what is my verdict today on Helena? Starting with the positives, this is a unit that right out of the gate is positioned well to counter those strike and unit attack monsters. She's going to hold up very well against both Sol and Alaya in particular. Although if Sol starts bringing out some of his area of effect spells, that can definitely hurt Helena quite a bit. Now Helena is definitely a unit who is going to be able to bring the pain with some large diamond area of effect damage with very long range attached to it. And not only that, she does have a couple of different imperils that will make it very difficult to defend against her. And to round out the kit, she does have access to a couple of strong unit-based magic attacks as well. She will also be bringing a bit of utility to the team on top of that. She does have the ability to protect your re-raise status, assuming that she is able to land that debuff on her enemies. She does also bring that courage removal on hits, which will be very helpful in dealing with enemies like Alaya, Summer Glassy, or Bradley. She'll also very much be a menace out there on the battlefield with a very high chance to sleep your team, causing you to miss turns and incur bonus damage. On the more negative side, Helena does have a couple of different weaknesses to both pierce and missile damage, while also having 0 area resist innately. Now, as we talked about, Helena is also a unit that's very much on the weaker side of the accuracy index, so you really need to invest a lot into her gearing in order for her to hit evasive units reliably. We are going to be missing some key utility points for Helena as well, things that you'll want to fill in the other slots of your team. No general dispel, no barrier break, no way to remove protect or shell, and no way to remove re-raise either. At the end of the day, I do believe that Helena will be our next meta-shaping unit, even without Vivi currently, who I do think will be one of her best sidekicks. Now, even outside of that weapon or job class compositions, she does have a great supporting cast within the light element as well, and access to good vision cards no matter which way that you decide to build her. So there it is, guys. Those are my thoughts today on Helena the Black Rose. Does it feel like the meta is just shifting at an incredibly rapid pace as of late? I think for me it definitely does, because that worldwide crunch really just zoomed us through several meta shifts that happened over in JP over the course of a few months. Units like Raph, Analia, and Saul, those units had a bit more time to bake and marinate over there in their meta. And over here, it still feels like they're all relatively new for us, because in fact they are. So another unit here coming in and sort of being that meta-shaping unit in Helena, I know is going to feel like a lot for many people out there. I know it definitely does for me. On the brighter side, I do think that because now we're more or less lock in step with the JP version as of now, I do hope that it slows down a bit for us here as we go into the holiday season. I do think another interesting development here is that Helena really does continue a recent trend by the developers where the permanent pool units are really being made much stronger than the collaboration units, which really is a lot different than in past years of the game. At the end of the day, I do think that that is actually a net positive for the game. I really do think that the best units and most valuable units should be part of that permanent pool. I think that does help reduce some of the FOMO around those collaboration units just a bit, but also has the positive effect in that you have easier access to grow these units and pull them at any time. So let me know what you think about all that in the comments down below. Definitely let me know what you think of this unit too. Did you pull her? What teams have you been putting her into? And of course, while you're down there, if you enjoyed the video today, hit that like button for me. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And that's really all that I have to say for today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.